when talking about the best games of all time, and have probably had our own debates about which games deserve to be mentioned on that list. What we don't spend much time talking about are the best games that nobody seemed to notice. For whatever reason, they came and went, and not that many people even played them, though they were outstanding. With this in mind, I bring you my top 5 most underrated games.
5.
Coming in at number 5 is probably a controversial one with Sonic Spinball. Now, I say it's controversial largely because the popular opinion was that this game was terrible, but if you go back and play it, it's actually a lot of fun. The game offered a mixture of platforming, pinball, and puzzle-solving elements, and it was insanely difficult. There are only about 5 stages in the game, and yet I only know a few people that actually managed to finish it. Plus, if for some reason you hated Sonic, you probably got to watch him die over and over again in a pool of acid on the first level.
4.
At number 4 on my list of underrated games comes The Darkness 2. Most critics gave this game about a 7 or an 8, which are good scores, but not a lot of people picked this one up. Maybe it was because it was a game based on a comic that had sort of a cult following, or because the single player itself lasted only about 6 hours, but the actual game itself, as far as the campaign went, was a masterpiece. The voice acting was some of the best I've heard in video games, period, and the production value of the story was mind-blowingly good. Couple that with the fact that you got to literally tear people's spines out through their assholes using demonic arms, and you've got yourself a recipe for one hell of a game. It was a perfect example of a linear game working how it should. Seriously, if you haven't played through it, I recommend putting this one at the top of your rental list. You won't regret it.
3.
Number 3 on my list is Rayman Origins. You'll hear this game thrown around a lot when people talk about underrated titles that people didn't pick up, and there's a reason for that. It's really good. The platforming is super fun, and toward the latter stages is actually relatively challenging. What takes this game over the top, though, is its charm. From the character and level design to the silly songs that will almost definitely get stuck in your head, you'll have a lot of fun with a friend playing through this one. Seriously, try and get this song out of your head by the end of the day.
2.
Coming in at number 2 on my list is a classic first-person shooter that probably missed a lot of people's radars because they either didn't have a PC or they were too young. I'm talking, of course, about LucasArts' excellent Western shooter called Outlaws. Outlaws was the first game I can remember to take the FPS genre to the Wild West, and the production values were great at the time. The graphical style of the game was sort of similar to a lot of cel-shaded games that you see today, going for more of a cartoony style of animation. Outlaws was also another game to have an amazing soundtrack. It really was a great game for its time, and if you were to pick it up today, it would definitely be worth at least a few hours of fun.
1.
Finally, coming in at number 1 on my list of most underrated games, a game that God of War fans love to hate, I'm talking about Dante's Inferno. Dante's Inferno is a game based on a poem about a knight who goes to hell in order to save his beloved Beatrice. While the story in the game is obviously a loose interpretation of the poem, it does follow Dante's journey through the 7 circles of hell as he tries desperately to save his love. Most people hated on Dante's Inferno when it came out because the combat is very similar to God of War on the surface. But to be fair, God of War's combat is pretty much flawless. Why deviate away from a perfect system? That being said, the combat is very different once you progress through the game. As far as comparisons between this title and God of War, I would give the aesthetic edge actually to Dante's Inferno, not necessarily for being more epic, but for more adeptly capturing the creepy, grotesque, hopeless atmosphere of hell. One of the coolest features was that you'd find different historic figures from the poem throughout the game and get to read why they were banished to hell. Afterward, you'd choose whether or not to absolve them of their sins or punish them and tear them limb from limb. Doing so would grant you either holy or darkness points to level 2 separate skill trees. Reading all the stories actually made me really want to get up and read the poem. How often can you say that? A video game made you want to get off your ass and go read. I could go on for a while about Dante's Inferno, but you get the picture. So there you have it, my top 5 most underrated games. I'm sure there are some that you feel I left off the list, so as always be sure to comment below and tell me where I f***ed up. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll catch you next time.